Then doing things better. Well, obviously this is really critical for public confidence in the criminal justice system. This took a knock in the 70s and 80s with some high-profile miscarriages of justice. And then, of course, we had the development of the market, which opens up the possibility that we might not be doing things as well as we could do unless we have, really firm quality standards and good regulation of quality. But of course now we have the regulator, so we can, I wouldn't say we can relax, but at least we've got someone who's really looking at that side of things and making sure that we don't lose the plot on quality. But there are lots of things that suppliers can do. We can extend our quality standards. We can make sure that there's full validation and accreditation of all new technology. I think we probably do that as a matter of course, but it's not always been the case, and maybe not always to the standard that's really required. We can ensure individual competence and continuing professional development. We absolutely have to do that. I think we were very sad about the demise of the CRFP. Imperfect system, absolutely, but I think our view is still that it was better than nothing, and we're in a little bit of a hiatus at the moment while we wait for something else to take its place, so we're sort of slightly nervous about that. And I hope we haven't taken a step backwards before then, I'm sure, taking some steps forward. Refining products and how to use them. I've spoken about that before, but it's really critically important in doing things well and doing things better. Developing more discriminating techniques, absolutely, so we can be more confident, more sure about what we're reporting and the connections, associations with individuals who are suspected of crime. And then this is one thing that I'm really keen on. I've been hopping on about for the last year or two, but putting much more emphasis on finding traces to test. We spent a long time developing wonderful new technology which can analyse tinier and tinier amounts of stuff, but that's not much good if you're not actually finding the tinier traces. And so just recently I think a lot more attention has been paid to that, and we've had some remarkable successes in some of the old cases where it's often difficult to find stuff to test. We've had some great successes in that. So that's absolutely, all those things are stuff that the suppliers can and are doing to help. But a lot of these things are expensive. I mean, running quality systems is extraordinarily expensive, as anyone who's tried to run one knows, the 17025 in particular. So where's the funding to come from? Because our margins are being squeezed as we go into this competitive process, which is what you'd expect. But there must come a point beyond which it becomes quite difficult to balance everything, because it's not just all these things, but there are lots of other things, of course, that we have to fund as well. Is there a proper understanding about training requirements of forensic scientists? I always wonder about that. Training's very expensive, and we certainly don't get ready-made scientists from universities or other training institutions, as I'm sure you're aware, or not yet anyway. Maybe that will change. Are all suppliers accredited to the quality standards they sign up to? That's quite interesting. If you look at the UCAS website, it seems not, and I'm sure the regulator will be very interested in that. But how can we develop a better dialogue between suppliers and all stakeholders? I think that's really critical. At the moment, I think we feel we've got a reasonable dialogue with our primary customer, who are the police forces, but very little with the end user, the lawyers and the judges and the courts. We don't seem to be well connected there at all, and I think we feel very vulnerable, and we feel we may not be doing the right sort of things because we're always doing it through this filter, and it's just the way that the system's set up at the moment. But I'm sure that something there needs to change. So then, faster, cheaper and better all at once. This is really tricky because improvements in one area, and pretty obvious, will necessarily affect the others. And I've given 3 examples there. Batch processing is jolly good for cost effectiveness, but may affect timeliness, very likely to affect timeliness while you're waiting for your batch to build up. Time is passing. Fast methods mayn't be the most discriminating, and discriminating methods mayn't be the cheapest or the fastest. So they're all interrelated, and it's quite tricky to do all 3 at once. Indeed, I think I'd say it's impossible. And better is most likely to suffer because speed and price are fixed in the tenders. and better's more fluid. And of course, I'm concerned that if we don't get this right, this may lead to loss of full service suppliers, and I've talked about the difficulties with that, and of course could be exacerbated by these large swings in caseload. Remember those charts I showed earlier, which showed that actually the size of these tenders are larger than most of the suppliers who are going for them. So that's again potentially destabilising and potentially works against doing faster, cheaper and better, and certainly all at once. But I've been wondering, could we not distinguish between the requirements of different sorts of crimes? So some crime, you say, well, faster's more important. Other crimes, you say, well, cheaper's more important. And other crimes, you say, well, the quality is absolutely paramount. Or combinations of those. Because I think if we could do that, then we could relax a little bit about this. But it's the sort of all-embracing faster, cheaper, better for almost anything you do, which is tricky to cope with at the moment. And then, of course, this is my point about full service providers. Should we have a minimum breadth of expertise requirements for suppliers undertaking major cases?